Campari had indeed been one of the first Italian firms to shape its advertising according to the ever-changing tastes of the customer. Sales knew which newspapers their customer read, and studied the lifestyle Campari drinkers were accustomed to. Sales knew what people thought, what they wanted. But satisfying needs wasn't enough. Campari planned to shape them. A smiling woman offers you an aperitif. A romantic hero gulps down some liquor like a magic potion. Sprites and satires peep from a black background. You're looking at the first posters Davide Campari commissioned in the early years of the century. These works represented the introductions before a long-lasting dialogue between the firm and the consumer. The image they projected reflected the people's taste. That's what customers wanted to see, their language, their codes. As the consumer's preferences changed, so did the style. During the 20s and 30s, the company switched to a more aggressive vocabulary. Instead of diluting the brand in standardized creamed ads, Davide Campari joined forces with various avant-garde artists who portrayed his company in the most alluring way. He gave them free reins, greenlighting concept delivered by people having different backgrounds. Several artists concurred to create a more complex and modern image of Campari, where each personal style represented one tile of the broader mosaic. This kind of advertisement didn't need any extra punch. Inspired by avant-garde aesthetics, it was eye-catching as an ad can be, without being vulgar. So ads conveyed art, and art gave voice to ads. But Davide Campari wasn't the only one who embraced this peculiar dynamic.
The art of the future will be like powerful advertising. This bold lesson, this unwavering claim I learned by visiting museums, by studying the masterpieces from the past. The art from the centuries gone by aimed to advertise. The classical archaic style of the past served to glorify the old days. Now we need a new splendid art, exalting our days, our glories. It has to be mechanical and quick. This new art shall promote movement, action, light, and modern goods. The art of advertising is colorful, synthetic. It's seductive and shines bravely on walls, on buildings, on trains, on the sidewalk, in store windows, everywhere.
This was an extract from the manifesto entitled Futurism and Advertising Art. Futurism was an Italian avant-garde movement that originated in the early 20th century and lasted for almost 80 years, changing its skin, its rules, its principles, its goals. Futurism's main focus is evident. In brief, the movement glorified modernity in its many shapes: industry, technology, speed, youth, violence. Everything new, all the stuff which came from the sparkling metropolis, all of that was good and exciting and worthy of a new narrative. Modern life needed to be exalted by modern art, a novel, creative force that pushed the boundaries of what was painting, music, literature, and so on. In a certain way, futurism advertised the product, the future, using new languages. So it was just a matter of time until someone realized that the same thing could have worked the other way around. That advertising could be art. That's what Fortunato Depero believed in. Depero was the futurist who pushed more strenuously for advertising to be recognized as a form of art. For him, this wasn't just a theoretical fight about the role of art in the modern world. It was personal. Depero had already been active in the advertising business for years when he decided to put his ideas into writing and composed Futurism and Advertising Art. In the manifesto you can read the enthusiasm of a young, energetic man who knows the ins and outs of the business. But who was he? Was he an artist, a painter, a sculptor, an ad man? Or was he something else? Nicoletta Boschiero is the manager of the Casa d'Arte Futurista Depero, that is the Depero Futurist House. Here's her answer.
Non è solo un pittore.
Depero crafted pieces of textile marquetry, designed accessories and furniture. He wasn't just a painter. During his life, he experimented with different arts and played different roles, which he changed accordingly. He has been an architect when he was charged with designing a commercial booth. He has done things that qualify him as a designer, or at least as a proto-designer, as a performance artist, as a poet. In the end, he was an artist who managed to explore new horizons by overcoming boundaries.
For starters, he worked in advertising by drawing sketches for posters and affiches. In the early 20s, he was based in Rovereto, a small town in Trentino. The town center is small and quiet. The paved streets didn't change much since then. So strolling up and down the area is like walking through a time machine. Behind one of these peaceful corners hides the ponderous gate of Depero's home. He spent his days working in a studio full of wondrous statues and paintings he made. Beside him stood Rosetta, his wife, sewing and modeling colorful tapestries. The door was always open because any stranger could be the next customer or a future patron. Depero transformed this house in the Casa d'Arte Futurista, House of Futurist Art, that is a peculiar mix between an atelier, a workshop and a showcase for Depero's works. Later he moved his works into a bigger, more central location. The new address is 38 Via dei Portici, where he started setting up his own gallery. Now you'll find a museum there, the Depero Futurist House. Unfortunately, Rovereto wasn't the kind of place where one can make a living out of advertising, not in the early 20s at least. So in the beginning, Depero traveled to Milan, which was, and still is, the industrial/financial hub of the country. Boschiero explains how this worked.
Lui aveva un'attività di rappresentanza.
He was his own salesman. He packed everything up, said bye to Rovereto and left for Milan, where he stayed for a few days trying to sell his art. He initially aimed to obtain commissions, but after a while he started looking for some kind of job in the advertising business. This search gradually became of the utmost importance to him, and while his hometown entrepreneurs couldn't afford the services Depero offered, Milanese businessmen were right up his street.
He used to spend days courting art directors, to whom he showcased concept and sketches. This allowed him to acquire his first clients while testing the waters of the advertising sea. There was a problem, though. He didn't like the idea of moving to the big city, because it would have meant to leave his wife back in Rovigo, the only person he could entrust with running the Casa Futurista. So he opted for taking short, solitary trips to Milan, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually the strategy backfired, losing him several opportunities. He simply wasn't there when he was needed. After he lost the juicy commission, Depero made a deal with his friend Fedele Azzari. Azzari had a long list of activities on his resume. Poet, painter, art collector, editor, airplane pilot, weaver. But for Depero, he was the guy who lived the city, who felt the vibes and intercepted potential contracts. All day, all night, he scoured sales offices for the best opportunities, while smelling the most promising firms in terms of business opportunities and aesthetic orientations. In some way, Azzari was Depero's guide and art director. He stole important clients from advertising agencies and helped the young artist to make his works more appealing to a sales manager eye. The two worked in an assembly line. Azari found a lead and informed Depero, who in turn crafted and sent him a concept. If it wasn't quite right, Azari asked for a second or a third try, until they agreed that the sketch was in line with the client's expectation. And then Azari sold it. Money was finally flowing into the duo's pockets, while futurist art started to be the protagonist of a growing number of billboards in Milan. The artist was finally happy, because these were the two things that Depero desired the most: to stabilize his income and to cheer up the world with joyful colors.